45 days. That's how long it took. From the morning the towers fell to the day the president signed a 342-page law that most members of Congress admitted they had not read. Most people remember what that law was called. Almost nobody remembers what it actually did to their bank account. The USA PATRIOT Act, uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. That's what the acronym stands for. Title III of that law, the section that received almost no coverage in October 2001, wasn't about terrorism surveillance. It was about money, specifically your money. And the system it built has been running inside your bank silently every day since November 2001. It was expanded again in 2026. This video is about what that system actually does. Here is what we're going to cover: how the Patriot Act passed in 45 days, and what was in the 342 pages that most legislators never read. The 5 sections of Title III that restructured your relationship with your bank permanently. What each one requires, what each one means for your account, and what happens when the system acts on what it finds. The Know Your Customer architecture, the internal risk profile your bank maintains on you right now, how it updates automatically, and what happens when your behavior crosses a threshold you've never been shown. Operation Choke Point, the documented federal program that used the Patriot Act's banking architecture to pressure financial institutions into closing accounts for entire industries, not individual bad actors. Industries. The 2026 expansion. What FinCEN added to the framework this year. ITIN risk flags, real-time monitoring obligations, and what that means for millions of account holders who have done nothing wrong. And finally, 4 specific types of ordinary Americans whose accounts are being touched by this system right now. Not criminals, ordinary people. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what your bank is required to do with your financial data, and exactly who it's required to report it to. To understand what the Patriot Act did to banking, you need to understand how it passed. The bill was introduced in the House on October 23, 2001. It passed the House the same day. 342 pages. Passed in one day. Representative John Conyers of Michigan, one of the few members who voted against it, stated publicly at the time that the bill had been moving so fast that members were not given time to read it before voting. Senator Russ Feingold of Wisconsin was the only senator to vote against it. In his floor statement, according to congressional record documentation, Feingold said, "The bill guts the constitutional requirement that law enforcement demonstrate probable cause before conducting searches, and that the terrorism emergency was being used to pass surveillance powers that had been sought and rejected for years." He was talking about the communications surveillance provisions. But Title III, the financial section, was doing something equally significant, and it was receiving almost no attention at all. The public was watching one hand. Title III was the other. Title III restructured the relationship between U.S. banks and the federal government in 5 specific ways. Section 311, Special Measures. This provision gave the Secretary of the Treasury, and by delegation, FinCEN, the authority to designate any foreign financial institution, foreign jurisdiction, or class of transaction as a primary money laundering concern. Once that designation is made, U.S. banks are required to impose special measures on any account or transaction connected to that institution, jurisdiction, or transaction type. Those measures range from enhanced record-keeping to outright prohibition. The designation does not require a court order. It does not require criminal charges. It requires the judgment of a single federal agency. And once it's imposed, the bank has no choice. Section 312, Enhanced Due Diligence, required all U.S. financial institutions to apply enhanced scrutiny to accounts held by foreign banks and foreign private banking clients deemed high risk. The definition of high risk is determined internally by the bank using criteria developed in response to FinCEN guidance. You don't know the criteria. You don't know if you've been classified. The classification operates without your knowledge. Section 314, Information Sharing. This is the provision that most directly turns your bank into an intelligence asset. Under 314A, FinCEN can transmit a list of names to financial institutions nationwide. Names of individuals or organizations suspected of money laundering or terrorism financing. Banks are legally required to search their records within 2 weeks and report any matches to FinCEN. The standard for appearing on a 314A list is suspicion, not evidence, not charges, not conviction. Suspicion. And when your bank searches its records for your name, it cannot tell you. When it finds a match, it cannot tell you. When it reports to FinCEN, it cannot tell you. According to FinCEN's own reporting, over 5,314A requests were processed in a single recent year, covering tens of thousands of individual names. Most of those people had no idea they had been searched. Section 326, Customer Identification Programs, required every U.S. financial institution to implement a formal Customer Identification Program, CIP, name, date of birth, address, identification number, verified at account opening against government watch lists. And here is the part the initial coverage missed entirely. Verified on an ongoing basis. Not just when you open the account. Every time the bank's internal risk model determines it's time to verify again. A change in transaction behavior can trigger re-verification. A change in account activity can trigger re-verification. You don't receive notice that re-verification is happening. You don't know what triggers it. You find out when the bank asks for documentation, or when the account is restricted while they decide. Section 352, Anti-Money Laundering Programs, required every financial institution to establish and maintain a written anti-money laundering program. 4 minimum requirements: internal policies and procedures, a designated compliance officer, ongoing employee training, and independent audit. On paper, a compliance framework. In practice, the legal foundation for a surveillance infrastructure that runs inside every bank in the United States. Every transaction you make passes through that infrastructure, every day. What Title III created, and what subsequent FinCEN guidance expanded across 2 decades, is what the banking industry calls Know Your Customer, KYC. Most people have encountered it without knowing what they were encountering. A request for updated documentation from a bank you've had for years. A hold on a wire transfer pending review. A letter asking you to explain the source of funds for a deposit. That's KYC operating. But here's what the internal architecture actually looks like. Every account at every U.S. financial institution carries a customer risk profile. It was created when you opened the account. It incorporates your stated occupation, your expected transaction patterns, your account history, your geographic location, and your identification type. And it updates automatically. A sudden increase in cash deposits, profile updates. A wire transfer to a country on an elevated risk list, profile updates. A pattern of transactions inconsistent with your stated occupation, profile updates. Deposits that follow a pattern the system associates with structuring, even if you've never heard the word, profile updates. The profile is a living document, and when it crosses an internal threshold, the bank acts. This architecture was at the center of what federal investigators later called Operation Choke Point. Operation Choke Point was a Department of Justice initiative that ran from approximately 2013 through 2017, according to House Oversight Committee documentation and subsequent Inspector General reports. The program pressured financial institutions, using their PATRIOT Act compliance obligations as leverage, to terminate banking relationships with businesses in industries the DOJ considered high risk. Not because those businesses had committed crimes, because their industry category had been flagged. According to testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, hundreds of legal businesses lost banking access during Operation Choke Point, not through any legal process, not through any criminal finding, but through pressure applied to banks via their federal compliance obligations. The program was officially ended in 2017. The banking architecture it used was never dismantled. In 2026, according to recent FinCEN guidance, the PATRIOT Act's financial surveillance framework was expanded in 2 specific directions. The first expansion, IT and risk flags, Individual taxpayer identification numbers are issued by the IRS to individuals required to file taxes who are not eligible for a Social Security number: immigrants, foreign nationals, certain visa holders, international students, some adopted children. Under the 2026 expansion, accounts associated with ITINs are now subject to enhanced monitoring as a default risk category. Not because of the account holder's transaction behavior, not because of anything they did, because of the identifier type attached to their account. The account is legal, the holder is compliant, the transactions are legitimate, the number itself is the flag. According to IRS data, approximately 5 million ITINs are active at any given time. 5 million accounts, now in an enhanced monitoring category by default because of an identifier. The second expansion, real-time monitoring obligations. The original Patriot Act framework required after-the-fact reporting. Something happens, a human reviews it, a SAR is filed, FinCEN receives it days or weeks later. The 2026 expansion, according to recent FinCEN guidance, extended the framework toward real-time transaction monitoring obligations for certain categories of financial institution. The distinction is significant. After-the-fact reporting, a human reviewed a completed transaction and made a judgment. Real-time monitoring, an algorithm evaluates your transaction as it happens, before a human ever looks. Your wire initiates. The system evaluates it against your risk profile, against current watch lists, against behavioral patterns associated with flagged activity. In under 4 seconds, a determination is made, and you won't know what it was until something stops working. Has your bank ever placed an unexpected hold on a transfer, asked for documentation you didn't expect, or closed your account without a clear explanation? Drop it in the comments. You're not alone, and what you experienced has a name. Here is what this system looks like from the inside. The freelancer, a graphic designer, self-employed for 6 years, receives payments from clients via wire transfer and payment platforms. Income varies month to month, sometimes $3,000, sometimes $14,000, depending on project load. The variation in deposit amounts, combined with the irregular pattern, crosses a behavioral threshold in the bank's risk model. A SAR is filed. She doesn't know. The bank cannot tell her. Her account remains open, but the report is in FinCEN's database now. It will stay there for 5 years. The immigrant worker, a construction worker, ITIN holder, has banked at the same institution for 4 years, pays taxes, sends remittances to family abroad, consistent amounts, consistent recipients, same pattern every month. Under the 2026 ITIN risk flag expansion, his account is now in an enhanced monitoring category. His remittance pattern, consistent as it is reviewed more frequently. He hasn't changed anything. The system changed around him. The small business owner, a firearms dealer, licensed, compliant, has operated legally for 12 years. Thanks at a regional institution that, following Operation Choke Point era pressure, documented in House Oversight Committee records, implemented internal policies categorizing firearms dealers as elevated risk. His account is flagged for enhanced due diligence under Section 312. He doesn't know the internal classification exists. 1 quarter, the bank sends a letter. Account closure, 30 days notice. No specific explanation offered. 12 years of business, gone in 30 days. The retiree, a retired teacher, fixed income, consistent deposits every month, pension, Social Security, has banked at the same institution for 22 years, makes one large cash withdrawal, $8,500, to pay a contractor for home repairs. The contractor asked for cash. The withdrawal is below the CTR threshold, but the pattern, a single large cash withdrawal inconsistent with her normal behavior, triggers a review under her customer risk profile. A SAR is considered. She will never know it happened. 22 years of ordinary banking and a single cash withdrawal was enough. The Patriot Act passed in the shadow of the worst attack on American soil in modern history. The public saw counterterrorism. Title III built something else. A surveillance infrastructure running inside every bank in the United States, maintaining a risk profile on every account holder, reporting to FinCEN without disclosure, searching records against federal lists without notification, operating in real time, as of 2026, before transactions even complete. The freelancer, the immigrant worker, the small business owner, the retired teacher, none of them terrorists, none of them criminals, all of them inside the system. The terrorism framing was the door. The financial surveillance architecture was what walked through it. In the next video on this channel, geographic targeting orders, the mechanism that allows FinCEN to lower your cash reporting threshold from $10,000 to $200 in specific zip codes, without a vote, without new legislation, with a single administrative order. Right now, that order is active across 3 states. If you want to understand how that authority works and whether it can reach you, you know where to find us.